I'm trying to copy some supermarket leggings. I've got 2 pairs here that I've had for years and years, and they're just dropping apart, so I don't mind cutting them up to make a pattern. So the first thing I did was to find the crotch seam, and I've just cut them in half carefully all along the crotch seam, just going straight in there all the way around from the back to the front, or the front to the back. And then I've ended up with half. You can see I've been using these for painting, they're really rubbished now. So I've got half there, which I'll keep for reference for making, and the other half I'm going to make the actual pattern. So the first thing I've done is mark the front. The waistband is dropped down lower than the back, but just so I don't get confused, I've put a label on for front. And then the next thing I'm doing is unpicking the waistband seam, so I can see how that's made and to make a pattern. So I'll go away and finish unpicking that and come back. So I've cut all the way down the inner leg seam. I think these are going to be quite easy to make because there's only an inner leg seam and a crotch seam to do the basic construction. So now I'm going to trace around this onto some pattern paper so that I've always got the pattern. I've got this dot and cross pattern paper, which is good for keeping your seams and your grain lines nice and straight. I folded the leg back in half where I can see the fold for the outside leg, and I'm placing that along the dots and the crosses so that I can transfer that to my pattern and keep that as the grain line. So I've drawn all the way around. I've added about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance just by eye. I'm not being too fussy because leggings are pretty easygoing and forgiving when you're sewing. I've also marked the waistband fold and where to fold, and I've marked, I've done that twice. I've marked back, front. I've put a couple of little triangles to help me sew together, and on the bottom I added about 1.5 inches for a cuff because I didn't bother undoing the cuff. Okay, now I'm going to cut my pattern out. A quick word about fabrics. You want something as stretchy as the leggings that you took the pattern from. So, you know, I've got some bamboo here which is really nice and stretchy in both directions. I've folded it over, selvages together, and I've folded it right sides together. I like to cut things out right sides together so that you're ready to sew. Things are already facing each other, ready to sew. How you find the right side on knit fabric is, on the right side you should be able to see the little rib lines. I don't know if you can see them there. So you should see the rib lines running from top to bottom. There's the nice stretch that will go around your body. So there's my fabric folded in half. Rib lines are going from top to bottom, right sides together. So I'm ready to lay my pattern on top. The first thing I like to pin is the grain line all the way down, and I check that it's on the straight grain of the fabric by measuring from the grain line to the selvage edge. So there I can see I've got 30, then I'll check again at the bottom, and there I've got 30 again. Check in the middle, should be fine. Yep, 30. Now I'm going to pin all the way around the outside and cut them out. So there they are cut out. Now it's time to sew them up. Now I'm going to take the paper away and I'm going to pin the back seam and the front seam, the front crotch seam and the back crotch seam. And because I cut them out right sides together, they're ready to pin and sew. That's why I like to cut out right sides together. Now I'm going to join this centre front crotch seam and the centre back crotch seam on the overlocker. If you don't have an overlocker, you need to look in your sewing machine book and find a good stretch stitch, and then practice on some scraps. I mean, you can sew these on a normal sewing machine as well, as long as you've got a zigzag stitch that you can turn into some kind of elastic stitch. But just experiment with some scraps for a good strong seam that stretches before you attempt to sew them up. Right, so I've sewn these two crotch seams. I've also neatened the top edge with the overlocker, and I've neatened the bottom of the legs with the overlocker. You don't have to, I just like to. Now I'm going to fold them so the back and front seams are together. Separate the legs. Now, matching the back and front crotch seams, I'm going to start pinning here and then pin all the way down each leg, and then I'll stitch from all the way from the bottom of one leg round to the crotch and all the way down to the bottom of the other leg. So I've sewn from the bottom all the way around and back to the bottom of the next leg, and I've tried them on and they're a good fit. So the next thing I'm going to do is sort out the waistband and the elastic. So I've got a piece of elastic that fits around my waist comfortably, and I've added about ½ inch on. Now I'm going to overlap that elastic by about ½ inch and zigzag it together on my sewing machine, nice and strong. So I've sewn my elastic together. Let's find the join to show you. So I just overlapped it and then zigzagged it down and went up and down. I've then divided this circle into 4 and placed a pin marking each quarter. Now I've got my leggings, they're right sides out now, and I'm going to mark the quarters there. So we've got the back seam, the front seam, give those a tug, and then we've got the other quarter over here, put a pin there, and then the other quarter here, put a pin there. Now I'm going to put the elastic over, oh we've lost a pin there, just a minute, over the top of the leggings, and we're going to pin at each quarter mark the elastic to the leggings. Work our way around. I always put 2 pins for security, because when you're stretching they can come out. Right, so that's all pinned, so I'm going to go to the sewing machine, and with a zigzag stitch I'm going to stitch the top of the elastic to the top of the leggings, and I will have to stretch the leggings as I go. Stretch them to fit each other as you go. but as long as you keep these pins in, it should turn out nice and even all the way around. So I've sewn the waistband on. Now I'm going to turn the waistband over to the wrong side, and then I'm going to stitch, it's called stitching the ditch, the front crotch seam to stop the waistband moving about or flipping. I'm going to sew in the ditch to the bottom of the elastic at the front and the back, and then at the sides obviously there's no side seam in these, but I will find the mark and just do a similar zigzag stitch just to hold. So at the 4/4 I will do a vertical stitch through the elastic, and that will be the waistband finished. So I've sewn my little zigzag stitches just to catch it in. That's what it looks like from the wrong side. That's what it looks like from the right side. All I've got left to do now is to turn up a hem on the legs, which I'm just going to do with a simple zigzag stitch on my sewing machine. So I've pinned my hems up, and I'm going to sew them from the inside because it's such a small circle I can't stretch it around the free arm, and I'll just work my way round with a single zigzag stitch. There's my finished leggings. I'm quite pleased with the fit. I'm going to wear them for a couple of days before I make another pair, just to make sure I'm happy with the pattern. Here's all the leggings I made. After I made the initial pair, one black pair, I made another black pair, pink pair, and a couple of pattern pairs. They all fit really well. The cost was £50 approximately, and I've got some odd shaped remnants left, which I'm going to attempt to make some tops out of. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a lovely day and do some happy sewing.